Welcome to the Effortless English Show with the world's #1 English teacher, AJ Hoge, where AJ's more than 40 million students worldwide finally learn English once and for all, without the boring textbooks, classrooms, and grammar drills. Here's AJ with a quick piece to help you learn to speak fluent English effortlessly.
I'm AJ Hoge, the author of Effortless English. Learn to speak English like a native. I also designed and created the VIP program for you to improve your English step by step, gradually. And you can make big improvements doing this. That's our topic today. We're going to talk about Kaizen. I actually have a lesson. One second, let me adjust my camera. I have a lesson in my Power English course about this topic, Kaizen. It's one of my favorite topics. And what is Kaizen? Kaizen is a Japanese word, but it means constant and never-ending improvement. It's the idea of improving just a little bit, but every day. Right? Like just very gradual improvements, very small improvements, building, a little improvement, the next day, a little improvement, the next day, a little improvement. And so each day feels very small, but over longer periods of time, right? So after a year, for example, these little improvements, They grow and they grow. They add together to make very big improvements. So that's the idea of Kaizen. Okay, that's a very quick summary of this idea, Kaizen. And we're going to talk about it. Today you're going to learn some vocabulary. We're going to watch a little part of an interview with a man named John Danaher. So this is an interview with John Danaher. And in this interview, John Danaher talks about Kaizen, about improvement, how to improve. Now, who is John Danaher? If you do jiu-jitsu is a kind of wrestling, a kind of fighting, a martial art. If you do jiu-jitsu, you might know John Danaher. He's probably the #1 jiu-jitsu coach in the world. I would say he's #1. He's the top. Certainly in terms of his fighters being the best and the most successful. So he's a very, very good coach. In other words, he's a very high level coach. He coaches several world champions, and he's very, very, very good. So he knows what he's talking about. What I'll do is I'll play the little piece of the interview first. No pausing. I'll just play it. And then I'll go back and then I'll explain some vocabulary, some words and phrases that John Danaher uses. So you can learn some new vocab today. Hopefully some of these words are new for you. All right, let's go ahead and listen now. Change my camera. All right, and that's John Danaher. Hopefully you can see on the screen now. Can you see on the screen? Yes. Here we go. I'm going to play it. And first, just listen, and I'll go back and we'll do it again. I got to move something on my screen. 1 second. There we go. Here we go.
Okay. Your Instagram description said living in the spirit of Kaizen. And I was wondering why you have that up there. And is that something you always thought about?
Yes. I'm a huge believer in the idea of small progressive movements towards goals. If you look at the course of an average day that we all go through, every so often, maybe 2 or 3 times in your life, there's one day which changes the direction of your life. But the vast majority of our days are unexceptional. They're just a boring, mundane day. You come home at the end of the day, and if someone asks you, what happened today? you would literally have to think back and be like, I'm not sure. That's probably a description of 95% of our days. So there's a chance in which you could drift through your life where only about 1 to 5% of your days have any real meaning, and that 95% of your life was a waste of time. And that's a tragedy. So we have to be very, very set on this idea that we have to maximize the use of all of our days if we're going to amount to anything in life. And that means at the end of every day, there has to be a concerted look on your part. What was the most significant thing that happened to me today, and how will it influence my life tomorrow? And if we can do this, your days become progressive. Most people live day to day where the events of yesterday have no bearing on the events of today, and the events of today have no bearing on the events of tomorrow. And this means your life will simply run in a flat line until the day you die. But if we make a concerted effort to build one day upon another, even if it's just a very small thing, and in most cases it will be a small thing. It's rare that we have a day where something monumental happens. Most days are not monumental, they're mundane. So on every one of these mundane days, we have to take one small little gem that happened. It may not be very big, something small, and add that to your performance tomorrow. And if we can do this over 10 years, something truly remarkable can happen. It's so easy just to let a day go and they say, I'll try again tomorrow. But until we get a sense of one day building upon another towards a goal, you'll never achieve anything.
All right, we're going to stop there. Okay, let's go back now. And first, I'm just going to give you some phrases. I'm just going to tell you, and then you can listen for them as we go. All right, so I made a little list of the vocabulary I thought might be helpful to you. Our first word is progressive. He uses this word several times. Progressive, progressive. And this is a very common word, so you need to know this word. What does progressive mean? It can have a political meaning, but the general meaning of progressive means gradual, means gradually growing, right? Gradually moving forward. Progressive, so not staying still, not just the same all the time, but gradually moving forward. Not suddenly, just gradually moving forward. Growing. And in this case, we're talking about gradually improving. All right, next word, mundane. Mundane. He talks about this word, mundane. Mundane means ordinary, usual, and has the feeling of kind of boring, like normal and boring, ordinary and boring, right? Just mundane, nothing special at all, not special. Okay, mundane. All right, drift through. You'll hear him say this phrase, drift through life. This means, to drift means to move, but to move passively. Like if you're in a river, like in a boat, right? It means you're not trying to move the boat. You're not rowing. You're not moving the boat. You just let the river carry. You're drifting with the river. So you're moving, but you're moving passively. So in life, if you drift through life, this has the idea that you're moving in your life, you're living your life passively, right? You're not trying to improve. You're not trying to take action. You're just letting life push you around. You're passive. Drift through. Our next phrase is set, to be set on something. He says, set on this idea. We need to be set on this idea. Set on just means focused on, right? Focused on. You're focused on it. You're looking at something. You've decided something and you're very focused on it. You're set on it. You could say, I'm set on losing 10 kilograms, right? It means you're focused on, you've decided to lose that weight. You're focused on it. You're strongly focused on it. Next word is maximize. Maximize. It means to get the most from something. If you want to maximize your English learning, it means you want to improve the most. You want to get the most value. Maximize, right? Get the top amount, the top performance. Maximize. He says, we need to take a concerted look at our lives. A concerted look. Concerted means together, organized, right? So if he's saying you want to look at your life, but don't just look at your life casually. Don't look at your life sometimes. You want to do it in a very organized way, right? So he's talking about doing it every day. Maybe at the end of your day, you look at your life and you see, what did I improve? What did I learn? Right? So this is a very organized. It's a concerted, organized approach. He uses the phrase no bearing on. No bearing on. Means not connected to. It's not about. It's not connected to. I'll explain that one a little more when we hear it in the interview. He uses the word monumental. Monumental. That's a nice word. Monumental means very great, very big, very great, very awesome, very large. Monumental. Very great. A monumental change in your life means a very great change, a very large change. And he's saying in this interview, that's not usual. Most days, you will not have a monumental change in your life, right? Let's say you're talking about English, learning English. Most days, you will not have a monumental improvement, right? In one day, your English will not jump up suddenly. A great improvement. It's going to grow. Each day, it might grow a little bit. You might learn one new word. You might learn a few new words, but that's all. And then finally, he used the phrase "a little gem." Find a little gem. Gem means like a valuable. The direct meaning of gem is a valuable stone, like a ruby, like a diamond, right? Those are gems. But here he's using it in a more general way. It means something valuable, something very valuable. All right, let's go back and do it again. This time I'm going to stop. I will pause and we'll review this vocab as he uses it. Here we go. Now the first interviewer says, on your Instagram, you have, so on his Instagram, it's something that says Kaizen. So that the interviewer is asking, why do you have this word Kaizen on your Instagram?
Okay. Your Instagram description said living in the spirit of Kaizen. And I was wondering why you have that up there.
So why do you have this living in the spirit of Kaizen? So living with Kaizen. That's kind of his motto, John Danaher's motto.
Is that something you always thought about?
Yes. I'm a huge believer in the idea of small progressive movements.
Okay, I am a big believer in the idea of small progressive movements towards a goal, is what he's going to say. Right, so again, small, gradual improvements, progressive, small, gradual, moving forward gradually, progressively.
Towards goals. If you look at the course of an average day that we all go through, every so often, maybe 2 or 3 times in your life, there's one day which changes the direction of your life.
Okay, so he's saying if you look at the course of your life, right, the path of your life, every so often, it means sometimes, not often, right, just a little bit, there's a day that changes your life in a big way, is what he's saying, right? But this is not common. It's not usual. Those days are unusual. To have a big change in your life on one day, those are unusual days. They do happen sometimes, but not normally.
But the vast majority of our days are unexceptional.
The vast majority of our days are unexceptional. The vast majority. So majority means most, right? So vast means, again, huge, great. The huge majority, meaning like 90%, 95%, 99% of our days are unexceptional. So exceptional means special. Unexceptional means not special. So he's saying most of our days, 99%, something like that, are unexceptional, not special.
They're just a boring mundane.
They're just boring mundane. They're just a boring mundane day. So again, mundane means ordinary, right? Dull. And it has kind of a little bit of the idea of dull or boring. So what kind of days are most days? Most days are mundane, right? Most days are mundane. Are most days exceptional? Are most days, super special? No, they're not. Most days are mundane. He's saying most days are mundane. Most days are kind of boring and normal, right? And of course, that makes sense.
Mundane day. You come home at the end of the day, and if someone asked you, what happened today? You would literally have to think back and be like...
Okay, so he's giving an example. Like if at the end of most days, if someone asks you, what happened today? You have to think about it because nothing special happened. It's just the same as yesterday. So you can't really, it's hard to think of something interesting or special that happened on most days, right? That's what he's saying. Because we have a routine, right? Maybe you get up, you go to work, you do the same thing at work as you normally do. You come home, you eat, and then you go to bed. It's kind of the same, and it's mundane.
I'm not sure.
Right? So you would say, I'm not sure what happened today. It's just the same.
That's probably a description of 95% of our days.
Okay, so he's saying that's a description of 95% of our days, just to give a number.
So there's a chance in which you could drift through your life where only about 1 to 5% of your days have any real meaning. Okay,
so now he's giving a warning. Right? He's warning us. He said there's a chance that in life that you could drift through life. There's another one of our phrases. You could drift through life, right? It means you could passively go through life and only maybe 1% to 5% of your days have meaning. So he's saying there's a chance if you're not careful, there's a chance you can waste most of your life. 95 to 99% of your days just wasted, right? Where you learn nothing, you do nothing special, right? You're just drifting through life. You're drifting through life. You're passive. You're just doing the same thing every day, drifting through life. So are you active or are you passive? He's saying the danger is that you are passive. The danger is you might drift through life. Be careful. Don't just drift through life. So he gives a solution next. He tells us what should you do instead? What's the answer?
And that 95% of your life was a waste of time.
95% of your life is a waste of time. So he's saying, obviously that's bad.
And that's a tragedy.
That's a tragedy. It's more than bad. It's a tragedy. A tragedy is a super, super sad story. Right? Something super, super, super sad. So he says that's a tragedy if you waste 95% or more of your days and you learn nothing and it's just the same as the day before. That's a tragedy. That's very, very sad. A sad story.
So we have to be very, very set on this idea that we have to maximize the use of all of our days.
Okay, we have to be set on this idea that we must maximize all of our days. Okay, so remember, set on means focused on. So we need to be focused on. We need to be focused on this idea, right? Do you want to drift through life? No. You want to focus on. You want to focus on this idea. You want to be set on this idea. You want to be set on what idea? What idea is he talking about? You want to be set on this idea of Kaizen. That's what this whole topic is about, this Japanese word, Kaizen, which we use in English now too, sometimes. You want to be set on this. You want to be set on this idea. And what is the idea of Kaizen? It's to maximize each day. Maximize each day. It means get the most improvement, get the most learning, get the most meaning from each day. Maximize each day, right? Remember, maximize means to get the most value, right? To get the most something. So here we're trying to get the most. If he's talking about jiu-jitsu, for example, he's a coach, so he's a sports coach, right? Jiu-jitsu is a kind of fighting. So he's talking, maybe in jiu-jitsu, he's talking about, you want to maximize your jiu-jitsu improvement every day. But of course, this is also true for English. You want to maximize your English improvement each day. Yes, you will improve a little, but you need to do it. You need to focus on it. You want to maximize it. Improve the most you can each day.
If we're going to amount to anything in life.
If we're going to amount to anything in life, means if we're going to achieve anything in life.
And that means at the end of every day, there has to be a concerted look on your part. What was the most significant thing that happened to me today?
Okay, so he's saying this is how we do it. How do you do it? He says at the end of every day, there needs to be a concerted look on your part. On your part just means for you. A concerted look. Do you remember what concerted means? Concerted means focused, right? It means organized. It was a better word, right? So this is something, this is organized. This is something you're going to do every single day. It's not just random. Sometimes you do it, sometimes you don't. It's a concerted effort. It's a focused and organized effort, an organized look. So it means you're very carefully looking at your day. And what are you looking for? It means you're looking for meaning. You're looking for something significant. What did you learn, for example? So this is a very good habit to have in life at the end of the day, maybe every night at some time. Just choose some time before bed. Is a good time to do it whenever. And you kind of then review. You look at your day. What did I do today? What did I learn today? What did I learn today? What did I improve today? And you just ask yourself this question. Just asking the question, having this concerted look each day, right? This organized habit. You will start to improve it. It will kind of focus your mind on growing and improving each day. Just by asking the question and thinking about it every day. What was important today? What did I learn today? This is how you do it.
And how will it influence my life tomorrow?
Okay, and this is the second part. So after you decide what was important today, what did I learn today? Part 2 is, how will that influence my life tomorrow, right? Meaning, tomorrow, how will you change tomorrow? What will you do differently tomorrow? You learn something today, well, now you need to make a change. Just learning, if it's just in your mind, but you do nothing, that's not going to change your life, right? So you say, how will this help me tomorrow? So again, with English, let's say you learn some new words. Maybe you try to use those words tomorrow when you're talking. Maybe you try to, maybe you have some kind of a review system. Maybe you use Anki or just flashcards, or you have a notebook, you write down vocab. So, tomorrow I'm going to review those words so I don't forget them, right? Because maybe you're learning them today, like these words, for example. You're learning some words today, but if you do nothing, tomorrow you probably forget them all. So you need to review them in some way. Maybe you go and you watch this video again. You listen to this show again tomorrow. So you're getting repetition, right? You change your actions somehow. Then you really are learning. Then you're really growing. You've got to do something. You've got to make a change. It's not enough just to learn it passively.
And if we can do this, your days become progressive.
Okay, so he says, if we can do this, Your days become progressive. So instead of every day the same, now each day you improve a little bit. You grow a little bit. You get a little better. And then the next day a little more, and the next day a little more. So now your days, you're starting to go up, up, up. Instead of just flat, every day flat, same. Each day is getting a little better, a little better. Progressive.
Most people live day to day where the events of yesterday have no bearing on the events of today.
Okay, so he's saying this is the problem with most people. Most people live in a way where the events of yesterday have no bearing on the events today. No bearing means no connection, right? No connection to, no influence. So what's he saying? He's saying that most people, they don't do this. Yesterday has no connection to today. So something happened yesterday, but they don't learn from it. They don't think about it. So they don't change today. Today they do nothing differently. Today they just do the same exact thing again. And then tomorrow the same exact thing again. They're not connecting their days, right? They're not learning from yesterday and changing what they're doing today. So there's no bearing. There's no connection. Yesterday has no bearing on today. Yesterday has no influence on today, right? Yesterday has no bearing on today. This is the problem. That's why most people don't grow and learn.
And the events of today have no bearing on the events of tomorrow.
And then the same problem. The events of today, what they do today, have no bearing on what they will do tomorrow. So they do something today, and then tomorrow they learn nothing. They just do the same exact thing tomorrow. So there's no growing, there's no learning.
And this means your life will simply run in a flat line.
Right, so, and you can get the idea. If you do this, your life goes in a flat line. It's flat, right? There's no improvement, there's no going up. And this is for any skill in life. It could be English, it could be a sport like jiu-jitsu, like he's talking about. It could be relationships, it could be, any part of your life. This is true.
Until the day you die.
Until the day you die.
But if we make a concerted effort to build one day upon another.
Okay, so now he said, on the other hand, right? If you follow Kaizen, if you make a concerted effort to build one day, right? Each day building a little bit, each day growing a little bit, each day improving a little bit, each day learning a little bit. He's not talking about big giant improvements each day. Not monumental improvements, tiny improvements each day, right? You make a concerted effort, okay? A concerted effort. So again, this is a focused and organized effort. Is this a random effort? No, it's not a random effort. It's a concerted effort, right? It's an organized, focused effort. So what kind of effort must you make each day? Concerted. You must make a concerted effort each day. A concerted effort. Focused and organized.
Even if it's just a very small thing. And in most cases, it will be a small thing. It's rare that we have a day where something monumental happens.
Okay, now he's saying it like, even if it's very, very, very small. In fact, he says, most days it will be small. Very small. So don't expect a monumental improvement in one day. Don't expect a, very great, a very large, a very giant, huge, great change, improvement. That's not going to happen usually. Most days will be very, very, very tiny, small improvements. Right? Not monumental.
Most days are not monumental, they're mundane.
Most days are not monumental, they are mundane. We know this, right? Most days are not monumental. Are most days monumental, right? Huge change? No, most days are mundane, ordinary, and a little boring. But, he's saying, if you just make a tiny improvement that day, even the boring, mundane days, if you just make a little improvement, a little learning, with time, that's going to grow into something very big.
So on every one of these mundane days, we have to take one small little gem that happened. It may not be very big.
Okay, so what he's saying is that on each of these mundane days, these ordinary, boring days, on each of these mundane days, you look for one little gem, one little valuable thing, right? So he's saying you're just like at the end of the day, maybe, you're just trying to find one little tiny thing, one little valuable thing that you learned that you could improve. Now, what do you learn? Maybe it's a mistake. It doesn't always have to be something good. It might be something where you made a mistake. So maybe the one thing you learn is, oh, I did this and I got a bad result. I did something and I made a mistake. Maybe you try to speak English and your pronunciation is really bad and the other person doesn't understand you. Maybe. So you might think, oh, that's a terrible result. Oh, that's terrible. I didn't learn anything. No, you did learn something. You learn your pronunciation's not good. That's important. Right? Because you can do something about that. You can change that. You can decide, oh, now maybe I need to practice pronunciation more. Yeah, maybe you get on the internet and you search for pronunciation programs. You can join my pronunciation course. There are many different things you could do, right? So sometimes you learn from bad results, bad performances. I do jiu-jitsu. That's why I know about John Danaher. So this is the most common way I learn. Each time I practice jiu-jitsu, I go and I'll try something and it fails. It doesn't work. And I get beat. And then after I if you just get beat and feel bad, then you learn nothing. Oh, that sucked. And then that's not good. But instead, I just, when I'm going, when I'm walking home after class, I'll just think about like, what happened? Why did I fail? What didn't work? And sometimes I'm not sure, but usually I can figure it out. Usually I'll think, oh, I forgot to do this one thing. Oh, I didn't do that. I did this wrong. And now I'm learning, right? I need to improve my technique. So you can do this too.
Something small, and add that to your performance tomorrow. And if we can do this over 10 years, something truly remarkable can happen.
Okay, and this is the final point. If we can do this over 10 years, something truly remarkable can happen. So he's saying that each day seems mundane. Each day seems mundane, right? And each day you feel like, not much happening. Oh, maybe you learn some tiny thing, right? But then that little tiny thing adds to the next day, and that adds to the next day, and that adds to the next day. And maybe even in, 3 months, feels still very small. But if you look at a larger time, he's saying 10 years. I think it's less. 10 years, you can make a giant improvement. You can become a master. But even in shorter time than 10 years, I would say even in a year, 2 years, 3 or 4 years, that you will start to see and feel very large improvements, because the little ones add and they 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 add, and then suddenly, boom. This is why after 1 month, let's say you join my VIP program, effortlessenglishclub.com. I need to always mention that. You join my VIP program and you do it for 1 month. Maybe it seems very difficult. The first 2 lessons seem, oh, this is so tough. Oh, it's so hard to understand. It's so difficult. Oh my God, my English is terrible. Oh, this is so hard. This is common. This happens a lot. But you keep going and you just try to improve a little bit each day, just a tiny bit. After 6 months, you suddenly look back and you realize, wow, my English is much better now. Each day feels like nothing. Even maybe each month feels very little. But after 6 months, suddenly, when you think about it, you go back and you look. You go back and you look back 6 months, you realize, wow, my English has improved a lot. And then after a year, it can be a giant improvement, a monumental improvement. In 1 year, the improvement can be monumental. But each day feels like nothing, almost nothing, just a tiny, tiny, tiny each day. And each week feels very small. And each month even feels small. But then after 1 year, monumental. And this is what Coach Danaher is saying. And he's right about this. And he knows, like I said, this is probably the top jiu-jitsu coach in the world. He has coached several world champions. So it's a very good point. This works for English. This is true for your English learning. This is true for sports. This is true if you're learning the guitar. And really anything you're trying to learn or improve, you can use this. So, you just learned some vocab today, hopefully. A few of these words were new for you. What can you do? How can you build on that? Well, tomorrow, listen to this show again so you review it. So the words go a little more deep in your memory. You don't forget them all. You can write them down. You can look, you could put them on a card and review them. There's many things you could do. Just little changes, then they build. Slavi says here, we'll get into our comments and questions now. She says, every day is a new opportunity to do or learn something new. If we improve little by little every day, with a lot of work and a little luck, we can achieve monumental improvement. Indeed. Exactly right. Every day is a new opportunity to do something new. Improve little by little. And this is what I like about it, because on one hand, it seems like, well, it's only small. But the good point is that this seems easy, right? Because sometimes when you or I, when we focus on a big goal, like a big improvement, on one hand, sometimes that's very inspiring, right? Yes, you can dream about this huge change in your life. And sometimes that's really great. It's useful, for sure. That's good. But sometimes if it's too big, maybe actually it hurts our motivation because we think it seems too far. It seems like maybe it feels impossible. You're like, I'll never speak fluently like a native speaker with great pronunciation. It seems so far. Right now, my English is terrible. Right? And this can actually hurt your motivation. You think, why try? It's too far. It's too big. But if you just focus on a tiny improvement each day, that seems possible, right? It feels even easy to do. You're like, well, I can definitely learn one new word today. I mean, that's not hard at all. I can listen to one podcast today. That's not hard. That's easy to do. And then the next day, you learn another word, you listen to another audio, or if you're in my VIP program, you listen to your lesson, you read it. Next day, you do it again. Next day, you do it again, and you understand a little more, and a little more, and a little more. Each day, it's small, but they grow and they grow, and this feels very possible, and that's why psychologically, mentally, this is a really powerful mindset, I would say, attitude, way of improving, way of practicing. Just focus on very, very, very small, everyday improvements. Manuel Rocha says, thanks for your advice. After 2 years, I've really improved my listening English skills. Still struggling on my speaking. Thanks a lot. Let's take the same approach with speaking. Anton says, hi from Belarus. It's 3:30 a.m. here, and I'm watching you anyway. You're up late. Good for you. Thanks for joining. Okay. Anis says, always there are improvements with you, Mr. AJ. Thank you. Yeah, Gino Ribeiro says, the smallest step in the right direction ends up being the biggest step of our life. Indeed, it's just step after step. There's that saying, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step, right? The idea is, how do you go from here to there? How do you, walk 1,000 miles? one step, one step and another step and another step and another step, right? You can't jump 1,000 miles. You got to do it one step, one step, one step. We want lots of little steps. Same idea. Tunke says, today is not a tiny improvement. It's a great improvement. Awesome. And this does happen sometimes. He says that most days are mundane, ordinary and boring, but not all days. There are occasionally those special days where, for some reason, you jump up suddenly. You seem to just jump up, right? Something in your mind, we say clicks, right? It just like something, there's like a change in your brain or something, or in your body, and boom, suddenly you get a big giant improvement, a monumental improvement. That does happen sometimes. Those are fun days, right? That's really fun. Those days are great. They feel fantastic, but the problem is they can become addictive, right? If you're waiting for that day, then you can lose your motivation, because 99%, 95% are mundane. So it's nice. Enjoy the monumental days. Enjoy the big improvements. They do happen sometimes, but don't focus on them too much, because you will kind of lose motivation if you're just waiting for the big change, because they're not normal, right? Most days that does not happen. Most days are mundane. So what Danaher is saying is you have to learn how to use the mundane days, that the champions, that he trains, they're one of the differences is they learn to use every day for improvement. They use the mundane days, the boring, usual days. They find a way to improve a little bit. I used to tell a story about this friend I had that, I don't know, many years ago, I did a lot of running, and I ran a few marathons. And my friend wanted to start running, and he wanted to run a marathon. So he asked me for my advice, and I said, well, the most important thing, if you want to just run a marathon and finish it, is you have to be very gradual, very progressive. Exactly what Danaher is saying. I said, don't run too fast in the beginning, and don't run too far, right? When you're just starting, you want to, go slowly and just go a short distance. And then each week, add a little more, add a little more, add a little more. Be very, very, very gradual. Kaizen is what I told him. But he did not listen to me. He wanted monumental improvement, right? He was not a runner. But he just suddenly started trying to run a long way every week, right? He just tried to run really fast, really hard, and long distance immediately. He wanted monumental improvement immediately. So what happened? You can guess what happened. He got injured. He hurt his knees. He constantly had pain. His knees hurt constantly, and then he just quit. He never ran a marathon. At least not then. So this is the problem. If you're trying to chase, if you're trying to get monumental improvement all the time, you do foolish things. It's better to focus on little tiny improvements. Okay. Yeah, like Saeed says, the monumental improvement is indeed the product of doing little efforts every day, but in a consistent way. That's very well said. Very well said. Right. Little efforts every day in a concerted way. That's exactly right. In an organized way. Very well said. That's right. And that's how you get monumental improvement over time. Okay. Nanine says, this is my first time here. I always listen to your podcasts. Welcome. Yeah. Oh, cool. So here's an example of this. Oh, where is it? I just started jumping around. Sorry. Oh, here it is. Rizal Karim says, I have improved a lot in listening and speaking. In 1 year, it is monumental. And this is somewhere between 6 months to 1 year. And just imagine after 3 years or 5 years, the changes, the improvements are gigantic, huge, big, super monumental. So we do need some patience for this. Pablo Robles, good to see you again, says, I started one of your challenges in 2019 and I never stopped hearing several hours of English per day. It's a huge difference over time, but imperceptible day by day. I mean, that's a great vocab word there. Imperceptible means cannot be seen. It's almost like invisible. So he's saying that each day you see nothing. It seems like nothing much is happening. Like maybe you learn 3 words, let's say. You learn 3 new words. Does that suddenly change your English completely? No, right? Maybe it feels like nothing at all. Just 1 word, 3 words. Even worse is when you're focusing on like improving your listening. You're listening to my podcast, you're listening to my lessons, and each day you improve, but you don't even realize it. You don't know, right? It's hard to measure that, especially over 1 day. So it feels like feels like nothing's happening, right? After just 1 day, it feels like nothing's happening. That's absolutely true. And I have the same experience in my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that, in fact, some days I feel like I'm going backwards, right? I'm getting worse. It happens. Sometimes you feel like you're getting worse. Why? Because you're trying new things. You're trying to learn new things. Maybe you're trying to use new words when you're speaking English, or in Jiu-Jitsu, I'm trying some new technique, but I'm not good at it. So actually I get beat. I actually seem like I'm getting worse. It feels like that. I'm not getting worse, but it feels like that. And you might the same. Maybe you're working on some new words, but you use them incorrectly. You use them in a wrong way, or maybe your pronunciation's terrible. And so people don't understand you, and you think, oh, my English is getting worse. It's not. It's not getting worse. You're just trying new things. You're trying difficult things. And when you first try something new, you first try new words. You try saying difficult sounds. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes you fail. Yeah, you have some failures, but we can learn from the failures too. Akos, good to see you again. It says, the greatest of all mistakes is to do nothing because you think you can only do a little. A quote from Zig Ziglar. Right. This is he's very well said, that some people think like if I can't have a big improvement, I'll do nothing, right? They only want big improvements. Kind of like my friend with running. He didn't want to just add 1 kilometer per week. That wasn't enough, right? He's like, I want to add, 5 kilometers every week to my running. And so he thought, if I can only do a little bit, that's nothing. Why do it? So constantly trying to do too much, and he got injured. Okay. Yeah, like Bertalan says, sometimes we have to step back in progress to move forward better afterwards, like in chess. Yeah, it's a good analogy. It's a good comparison. Chess, soccer. Sometimes to move forward, you actually have to go back a little bit and then go forward more, right? That's right. It's a good way to think about it. Okay, Anis says it happens to me when I practice karate. Right. Anyone who does a sport or any kind of technical skill like music, playing music, you'll understand this, right? Because Danaher's a sports coach. it's not normal in sport to make a giant improvement in one day. Very unusual. Even if you're just like lifting weights, okay? Let's say you're serious and you're doing like powerlifting, lifting weights. You're not going to add a big amount in one day usually. Not, in fact, most days you're lifting the same amount, right? But you try to go a little harder, maybe do one more, right, than yesterday or last week, or and then maybe after a week or two, you add a little bit of weight, right? And even some days, weightlifters do this all the time. They have to. Some days or some weeks, some months, they actually drop down. They go back to lighter weights, and then they build back up again. All this is very normal in sports, and it's also true for English and for your English, that it's going to be gradual. Okay. Oh, hello from Tiger says, hello from Florida. I'm watching you with my 2-month baby boy. Oh, nice. Very nice. Florida. Yeah, Carol says, Suspedes says, I like this issue. It happens to me practicing sports sometimes. I train by starting from the very beginning and trying to do all the steps correctly. Very well. Very well said. Yeah, Renato, this is a good, I like this. Renato Matias says, I think it would be good to review your progress monthly or one time a year to see how much you've improved. It is a very good idea. Like, so again, Danaher talks about a concerted effort. So the idea of it being organized. And here, John Danaher is talking about, daily, reviewing daily. So finding that one tiny little improvement. But, most days, when you do this daily, you usually will find only a very, very small thing that you improved, or maybe that you failed and you learned something. But they're going to be very small. So I think Renato is correct that it's also good to, schedule it, put it on your calendar, that maybe every 6 months you look back. And then you'll see bigger improvements. And this is very motivating. It will give you a nice motivation. It'll help your motivation. You'll feel good. Because, like the small improvements are nice, but it's also nice to look back 6 months. I do this, like, again, with my jiu-jitsu, especially when I get depressed. When I get depressed, I'm getting beaten, and I feel like I'm going backwards, and I feel like, I'm not improving. I'm terrible. I've been doing it 2 years now. So yeah, I have a lot of days like that. And, but it does, what Renato says, it helps for me to think back, like, what was I like, 6 months ago? What was I like 1 year ago? Even better is 1 year, right? And I'll realize, I'm much better than 1 year. Like, if I could fight myself for a year ago, I would beat me. I would beat my old self easily, very easily. So that's nice. It's a good reminder and it's very enjoyable to realize. So you can do this with your English. Go back. One nice way to do this, you could record yourself speaking, even just reading. You could just find something, some paragraph, something in English, and read it out loud. Record it, maybe on video, only for yourself, just for yourself only. And then 6 months later, a year later, do it again, and then look at both of them, and you'll say, oh well, my pronunciation's better. I'm faster. My reading is better. I'm everything's improved. And this is great, because sometimes you won't feel it, but if you look and compare, you can look at your old video from a year ago, from 6 months ago, and then you look at your new video doing the same thing. Oh, wow. Another way you can do this is, I talked about this before, if you're in the VIP program, you go back, after 6 months, go back and listen to the first lesson again. And it will feel much easier, right? And you'll remember, oh, wow, 6 months ago, this was very hard. 6 months ago, I could not understand anything. It was so tough. And now, 6 months later, I listen to it again. Oh, I understand most of it. Not so bad. And you'll realize, oh, my listening's improved a lot. My vocabulary's improved a lot. So do these things. I agree with Renato, is that it's good to schedule that. So every 6 months, you can have a system like this. So you're reviewing and you're looking back. Of course, you do it every day, but then also do it for bigger time periods. Let's see. Ivanildo Luis Santos says, the natural approach, the same AJ uses, is the best and unique, fastest way to learn any language. Yes, I agree. That's why I teach this way. I've noticed that my students get the best results this way. Anton Kabernik says, in learning English, a very important thing is to concentrate. It's extremely difficult for me to focus on a certain topic and don't get distracted by something. You're absolutely correct. And this is an area where you can make little improvements, right? So you're right, especially if you're listening to something difficult. It's hard to concentrate for 1 hour listening to English. It's difficult. Like 1 full hour, maybe your brain just wants to do something else and look at something else. So maybe you only do 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and then take a break, and then do 5 minutes again. But you can use Kaizen. So maybe the next day you try to do 6 minutes. And then the next day, concentrate listening for 7 minutes, right? Or 6.5 minutes. And then gradually building that concentration until, indeed, eventually, you can focus and concentrate on English for an hour. You can listen to my show. You can listen to a podcast, a movie of an hour, and you're not distracted. So again, you have to try the very gradual Kaizen way. Okay, let's see. A couple more and then time to go. Yeah, I'll go 1 hour today and then we'll stop. So Sakare says, how much time to see my improvement? That's a good question. We all want to know this, right? How much time until you can actually feel it or see it, or it's big enough? It's hard to say, but it depends how much you're doing each day. But I think 6 months is a good time period, like Renato was saying. I think in 6 months you can see some very solid, significant improvements in most things in 6 months. There are some skills where it's very tough to see. I'll give you an example from my life is kite surfing. I learned to kite surf when I lived in Hawaii. And kite surfing is it's like surfing, but you have it looks like a parachute, right? It's a big kite and you use the wind and you stand up and then you're surfing around. The wind is pulling you. The hardest thing learning to kite surf in the beginning is just to stand up on the board, not fall down. And for me, that was very difficult. I had something like 20 lessons. So this was it was probably about 6 months. Maybe less, maybe 4 months. It's probably about 4 months. So for 4 months, I could not stand up on the surfboard, the kite board, for just a few seconds, and then I would fall down and crash, often painfully. And So I could not feel any improvement. So, in the beginning, I fall down, crash. 3.5 months later, it's the exact same thing. I'm trying, I stand up, and then I fall down and crash again. So it felt like I'm practicing all these lessons. Nothing's happening. I'm still falling and crashing because that skill is kind of all or nothing, right? That skill, it's like, it's some skills are like this where it just feels like nothing, and then you're going. Riding a bicycle, you'll see this with kids. Sometimes they just fall, they fall. And then suddenly, when they finally do it, boom, they're up, and then they can just go and go for a long time. It's like something finally clicks, something changes in their brain, and they can do it. And that's what happened with kite surfing for me. Actually, a different coach. I had a different teacher one day. My normal teacher was, busy or something. And this new guy, he saw, he gave me one little point, like, I'll do this. And I did it, and suddenly I stood up on the board, and I was riding. And after that, I could always ride. I could always stand up, no problem. It felt like one day everything changed. But of course, kind of subconsciously, somewhere in my brain, I was improving, but physically it was not happening. It felt sudden. So it's hard to keep going when in those situations. But if you keep going, I promise, like Sabisa says, I listen to my recordings of English from 2 years ago. I always have a good time. I laugh at my pronunciation. I think this is a very good way to do it in English is record yourself. Record yourself speaking. If you have a conversation, like maybe you find a conversation partner using Skype or something, you can, there's some programs, record your Skype conversation. Or like I said, record yourself reading something and just save it. And after 6 months, listen to it. After a year, listen to it. After 2 years, listen to it. And then you will see huge improvements. And like you said, it's like the says, you can laugh at yourself. You're like, oh my God, I was so bad then. I'm so much better now. It's a good feeling. Oh, so this is a good repetition helps. Usmanov says, I watched the movie Pursuit of Happiness. That's a nice movie. I watched it 5 times. Every time I watched, I felt improvement. Indeed. And this is another way to do it, like what Danaher says. People always want to do something new, right? But like Danaher's saying, most days are mundane. They're kind of boring. They're usual. So instead, listen to the same thing again tomorrow. With my lessons, my VIP lessons, my Power English lessons, any lesson, you always do this in my system. You do the same lesson for 1 or 2 weeks, or even more if you want to. You're getting repetition because you need to. Like Usmanov says that each time you repeat something, you'll improve a little bit. So he watched the movie the first time. Maybe hard to understand anything. Maybe very, very tough. Movies can be very difficult. He watched it again. Especially use some subtitles. Maybe you use your dictionary, whatever. You understand a little more. And then the next day, watch it again. Next day, watch it again. Next day, watch it again. A lot of people say, I don't want to do that, it's boring. But if you try to make a little improvement each time, that repetition can be very powerful. Very powerful. All right, we'll do one more, and then I'm going to go. Prema, thank you, Prema Mantra from the Super Chat. Gave me a donation. That's very nice. Thank you. Says, I'll end with this one. Could you please make some material about Bhagavad Gita? I'm a devotee of Krishna, and I wish to learn its vocabulary. Perhaps a mini story. That's a great idea. I could do that. There's a nice translation. I've got Prabhupada's. I've got 2 translations. Yeah, 2 translations of the Gita in, of course, the original Bhagavad Gita is in Sanskrit. But I have 2 English translations, one by Prabhupada, which is wonderful, and another one by a guy named Eknath Eswaran. So I could take that. And the nice thing about with the Gita, I could just take, I've done this with the Tao Te Ching also, where I could just take one verse, like one little section, very small, just a few sentences, and teach some of the vocabulary and maybe do a little mini story with it, or just do a lesson like today where I repeat the vocabulary, ask some questions. So yeah, that's a great idea. I'll do it. I would love to do that. Always would love to help. All right, we're going to stop there. So just as a quick review, I'm going to read our vocab words again. Progressive, meaning gradually moving forward. Mundane means usual, ordinary, and kind of dull, kind of boring. To drift through means to go through something and kind of passively. Go through life, drift through life. To be set on something means to be focused on it, to decide on doing something. To maximize means to get the most value, get the most from something. Concerted means organized, focused, organized. Bearing, no bearing on something means no connection to it, no influence, no bearing. A little gem means something a little bit valuable, a little bit, useful. And then finally, monumental means very great, very great. Very huge, very large. A monumental change is a very great change. And prema, no problem. Om Namo Narayanaya. All right, then. Lots of love to all of you. It was great talking to you. So what can you do to use this? I recommend listen to this show again. Do it tomorrow. And you can take some notes if you want to. Try to write down some of that vocab. But more importantly, get some repetition. So tomorrow, listen to this show again. You'll get more repetition of all these phrases and words. And so then it's a good review. You're more likely to remember them. You could also, like I said, use a flashcards or Anki or something. Some people like that. Some people don't. But do your best. Also, you could try, go find, this interview is John Danaher. And the channel is London Real. Show it on the screen if you're watching on video. You can see on the screen down here on the corner, London Real. That's the name of a podcast. So this guy interviewed John Danaher. So John Danaher, London Real. You could go try and listen to the full interview if you want to. Test your English. All right. Lots of love to you. As always, join my VIP program. It's designed this way. My VIP program is designed to give you gradual improvement, step by step, day by day. After 6 months, big improvement. After a year, monumental improvement. Join my VIP program at effortlessenglishclub.com. You can try it for just $1 for 10 days. effortlessenglishclub.com. Go there now. See you next time. Lots of love. Bye-bye.